Max, let's go to the hotline, and let's bring in the play-by-play voice of the only team in the state of Texas with a win over a ranked team. We go to, I guess he also talks about high school football sometimes as well. We are joined by the great Craig Way. Craig, have you recovered from the wild Saturday night at DKR?
Yeah, it was. It's funny you bring up the word wild. Really, about the only wild stuff that's happening around there is the new game day environment. And those who come down there have been genuinely surprised by what they've seen with what the new AD, Chris Del Conte, and Drew Martin, his senior associate vice president, associate AD, have done in completely revolutionizing, at least for Longhorn fans, the game day environment and atmosphere of having live music and having the food trucks and all of the stuff that they say really kind of represents Austin. They want some of all that, and it's been a smash hit the first two home games, and I imagine we'll see it probably well on display again this Saturday before they play TCU.
So let's talk a little bit about delve into the high school ranks. Anthony Chris, the head coach at Arlington Sam Houston, was just in the Dave Campbell's offices, and he mentioned to me that because of the rain and all the weather that we've had the first two of the first 3 weeks, and what is projected to be rain and weather, big weather across the state here this Friday. He said that he feels like he doesn't necessarily have as good of a read on which teams to expect that are separating themselves as others. I tended to agree with him, but I'm interested in your take on that. Do you feel like because of the weather, there's a lot more mitigating circumstances, and you're not necessarily ready to make that leap with a number of teams?
Yeah, absolutely. At least in the ones that you would say you weren't sure. It could be a team that you could think could finish anywhere from second place to fourth or fifth, maybe in the district. I think most folks felt like, if there's a team that's really, really good, like you could have Noah's Ark rain style flood in Aledo is still going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to be affected by that, or Allen or some of those teams as well. But some of the teams that we talked about this last week, Tep, that the fact that when you have some of thoserotation matchups like we see, especially in the Super CenTex region, when you got a lot of towns that are kind of close to one another, like a Rockdale and a Lexington and Giddings, all up and down that Highway US 77 corridor in that area, you'll see teams that are pretty close regardless of classification. They might be pretty close in enrollment, and on one given night, one side wins. On the other given night, if they were to play again, the other side might win, and the rain might have something to do with that. And if you get a couple of teams like that are in the same district, yeah, it could kind of wreak havoc with it if you have to push a game back. And it was another thing we talked about. If you have to push a game back to a Saturday, or heaven forbid on a Monday like they did in the playoffs a couple years back, and go through all of that, and then the 5-day rule comes into play. So a 1-week decision becomes a 3-week consequence as a result of that, of the time that you have to go in between. So I do agree with Coach Chris and you that it can have some effect on being able to judge just how good or how not good a certain team might be based on the weather.
And it's been kind of all over the state. This weather has affected different areas. We had the Coastal Bend in South Texas get affected, and then the DFW Metroplex in East Texas get affected as well. It sounds like it's going to spread into the big country as well this week. But that kind of brings up the topic of regions. And coming into the year, I felt like the Houston area had a chance to have a really good, deep year, crop of teams. I'm not sure my opinion has necessarily changed, but I also look at a couple of other regions around the state, and I'm really impressed with the depth that they have there. Are there any regions of the state geographically that have jumped out at you, and you say, oh, you know what, that maybe there's more contenders here than I thought there were?
Well, I'm on board with you about Houston. I thought going into the year, and the weather not only has not altered that change, it has not altered my opinion on it. It might even have strengthened it. An area like the Golden Triangle, because they seem to, puns included here, weather it well. I guess they seem to deal with it well. Newton obviously deals with it, but we knew Newton was going to be really good. And I think both of us said, yeah, West Orange starts 1 and 2, but they should probably be okay. We think that the Mustangs will be all right. And there's some other teams out of that area you look at and go, okay, yeah, well, they might be okay. I think clearly the Dallas-Fort Worth area is going to be as strong as it always is, if not stronger, with some of the other teams that are rising up. I mean, did you or I, before the season began, say Frisco Reedy could be a really, really dangerous team? I think we thought they'd be pretty good, but to be where they are right now. So there's a few of those, I think, that kind of catch our eye in the regions. But the big markets, clearly, DFW, Greater Houston, Greater San Antonio, to a lesser extent the Greater Austin area, which is pretty top-heavy. If you have those, I think those are the ones that speak to you the most.
We're talking with Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TFToday. So now we roll on into Week 4, and Week 4, as you know, is big week for bye. It's a very large week for Idle. Idle is a big contender this week. I feel really good about their chances to come out with a couple of wins this week. We'll have to slog through only 615 Texas high school football games this weekend. It's tough. I know that you're struggling with it. I'm struggling with it with this bye week that we're going to be missing a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I loved your tweets about that when you said, what is it, 17.9%, about 18% of the UIL schools in the UIL system will be playing with 221 schools or whatever, and you said that leaves us with 615 publics and privates combined. Thoughts and prayers for everyone. I said only in Texas can you have that many schools not have a game on a week, and you still have plenty of good ones to choose from as well. I give you an example. In the Greater Austin area, in the Central Texas area, you have an entire district taking a bye, 13-582, where it's like, take a powder, kids. We'll talk next week. And you can really only do that when you think about the math. You can really only do that if you have an 18 district.
Okay.
Hard to do. You can do it in a 16 district, but all the planets and stars got to align, because in a 16 district, when you've got 5 non-district games, teams are scrambling enough as it is just to fill out the dance card to make sure they have 5 non-district opponents. Ask Liberty Hill what they're having to go through. So you have that. So to tell an entire district, okay, we're taking what would be week 6 off as an entire district. Go find yourself 5 non-district opponents, take a week off, and then the last 5 weeks of the regular season, we go head-to-head and we decide. That's easier said than done in a 16 district. In an 8-school district, yeah, you can do that because you're talking about 3 non-district games. And as we've long discussed, 8 seems to be the ideal number for coaches. If you were to ask, if you did a poll, I'll bet you the vast majority of coaches would say, what's the perfect size for a district? The vast majority would say 8, because you get your 3 weeks of non-district play in. You can figure out what you need to do. You can heal some bumps and bruises, but you don't run the risk of losing somebody in week 5 in a non-district game and then not having him for district competition. That's 2 more games that you have to play that have no bearing whatsoever on whether or not you wind up in the postseason. So 3 seems to be the ideal number, and it really seems to be the ideal number if you're going to say to the entire district, hey, we're taking a week off. Go enjoy it, everybody.
Yeah, that you're exactly right. And so if you see entire slates of games that are just bye for districts, you now know why those are 8-team districts. We're talking with Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. Craig, I know there's one game in the Austin area. There's a number of them that are interesting, but I know there's one game that has you geeked up, and I know that there's a lot of people, especially around Pflugerville, Texas, who are geeked up about it. Hendrickson and Vandergrift. It sure seems like if you're Vandergrift, after a win last week, kind of eking it out over Cedar Ridge, it sure seems like you're looking at this Hendrickson game and saying, guys, if we can win this game, it's certainly not smooth sailing because it's a tough district, but this is the biggest game left on their schedule, right?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's definitely the most crucial. And, you still have to deal with Stony Point, who's pretty solid, and there's some other teams you don't want to sleep on. Round Rock, it's hard to – and by the way, it's kind of a weird deal. when you're in a 9-team district and you're the one that has the bye the first week of district play. That's kind of weird. And Round Rock had to deal with that last week, and Hayes had to deal with that last week as well. But, Vandergrift did it with defense. Mm-hmm. And going into coming back to beat Cedar Ridge. And if they're going to have a shot to beat just an absolutely, dynamic and explosive Hendrickson team, they're going to have to do it with defense. Again, last week I said that they've got a really good secondary, Vandergrift did. I said, but they've got to start with the run, stop at the run. And if they're going to do that, they have a junior linebacker in Jax McCauley, who's pretty good. And I said, he's going to have a pretty good game. Well, tell me if you think he had a good game last week. He had 15 and a half tackles and a pair of sacks. Jeez. 15 and a half and a pair of sacks in the game. He's going to probably have to have another game like that and his teammates along with him if they're going to have a shot to knock off Hendrickson this week.
And finally, Craig, I know you're going to be on the call for TCU and Texas. This game will be on at 3:30 Saturday at DKR Memorial Stadium. I know you're obviously excited about the game, TCU versus the Horned Frogs and Longhorns in a Big 12 clash. But I want to know, do you think there's a possibility that we see a fight between Bob Schieffer and Matthew McConaughey?
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
I'd be into it.
And I would not bet against Schieffer. He may be advanced in age, but he is a spry Texan.
He's wily.
It would not surprise me if that were the case. It should be a lot fun. Now, I'm surprised you didn't ask me about the call bomb I had on my show this morning with the family Dodge.
Yeah, by all means, please run our listeners through what happened on your show there on the Horn and in Austin.
Well, we do several different things. Obviously, we're looking over the stuff and then across the state, and you join me on every Monday to give the statewide perspective. But by and large, it's a lot about what's going on in the greater Austin, Central Texas area. And we visit with several of the coaches. We visit with Hank Carter of Lake Travis on Tuesday, with Drew Sanders of Vandergrift on Thursday, Jeff Abels of Bowie on Friday, and other coaches on Wednesdays. Todd Dodge, the head coach of Westlake, comes into the studio because it's 5 minutes from the Westlake campus, and comes in and hangs out. We do about a half an hour each week. And we talk about, obviously, the Chaparrals. We talk about Westlake, but we talk about general topics of high school football. And I happen to bring up the fact that last Friday, because Westlake had the Friday off because they had played on Thursday, that he was able to go up to South Lake and see his son, 29-year-old Riley Dodge, coaching the South Lake Carroll Dragons against Odessa Permian. Exciting finish to the ball game with Carroll holding on to win 24-20. And I was asking him about that, and he said it was a lot of fun. It was this and that. And I said, was it kind of weird being on the sidelines? Because Todd was actually on the sidelines, on the Carroll sideline while the game was going on. I said, was it kind of weird being on the sideline and not coaching? He said, yeah. It was the first time he'd been on the sideline, on the home sideline for Carroll since the last game of district play in 2006 against Grapevine. So it was weird. It was strange. I said, do you think Riley thought it was a little bit strange? He said, no, I think he was dialed in. I said, well, let's ask him. And I had lined up Riley to call in, and Riley, we had him on the line. And I said, well, let's ask him. Riley, was it weird? He goes, hey, Pops, how you doing? And so you should have seen the look on Todd's face. It completely took him by surprise. We had a great conversation. We talked a lot of stuff. And then I don't know that this is necessarily newsworthy, Tep, but I'll tell you this. It took me by surprise. At the end of the conversation, I said, odds are probably Carroll's going to be Division I in the playoffs. Westlake will be D2. I said, so you guys wouldn't face. So in other words, as long as you're the coach at Carroll and as long as you're the coach at Westlake, we're probably never going to see you guys play, right? And Todd Dodge, the elder, said, oh, I don't know about that. I think that might work out. And then Riley said, boy, Craig, he just kind of jumped right on that, didn't he? And then Todd said, well, that's what you said on the golf course this summer.
Yeah,
let's get it together.
love it.
He said, if it works out, he said, and it benefits both schools in a non-district game, why not? So we got off the air. We said, yeah, all we need to do is get like a big sponsor. He goes, maybe if they want to do it a neutral site. I said, look, if you're going to do this, do it like in your schedule in 2-year cycles. Let's let Carroll and Westlake play at AT&T Stadium in Arlington one year, and the next year play at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium in Austin. Do it like that, backyard games for both of them. Get some big corporate sponsor and call it the Dodgeball Classic or something. could be fun.
He is Craig Way. He's the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer and apparently matchmaker.
Game impresario, right?
Catch his fine work on the Horn in Austin, as well as on the IMG Texas Radio Network, and then of course on Fox Sports Southwest on High School Scoreboard Live, coming to you at 11 o'clock. Craig, appreciate your time as always. I will see you on Friday, and we'll do this again next week.
Look forward to it, Tep. See you then.